on. Yeah. Okay. The idea, as you can see, I'm saying that the sharp, the deep, the strong, absolute, huge difference and contrast between to use your mind when you have one, or to use your instinct when also you have one. And the idea that the dog really here succeeded and managed to save his life, unlike the man. And I think this is the main message here. We think that we can do things, but really this is the idea. You can see the details and the graphic, maybe dramatic way of trying to keep himself warm and so on, how he, as you can see, the details, there are a lot of nice details about it. I really would love to read all things, but as you know, you can't. So here you can see the man is trying all the time to warm himself. Notice he pulled the mitten so unhurriedly and stood up. He was a bit frightened. He stamped up and down until the stinging returned into the feet. It certainly was cold, and so on. So you can see, the details here, of course, is very clear. But again, look at this passage here. I think maybe I don't know, maybe I've read this before, but again here you can see that the dog at this time knew that it's very cold, and this man is not building a fire. So the dog is wondering why not he, why is he not building a fire? Notice here the narrator says this: the dog was disappointed and turned back toward the fire. This man did not know cold. Possibly all the generations of his ancestry had been ignorant of cold, of real cold, of cold 107 degrees below freezing point. But the dog knew, all its ancestry knew, and it had inherited the knowledge. Yeah, I mean, again here, the idea that, look at this lovely description here, that the dog knew, and it has inherited its own knowledge from its, of course, nature, really. And it knew that it was not good to walk around or to walk abroad in such fearful cold. It was the time to lie snug in a hole in the snow and wait for a certain cloud to be drawn across. And, you can see really this. It's an amazing, really very emotional description here, how to see how the dog really feeling sad that this man is not building a fire, and this man is wasting his life. And I think this is the idea. As you can see, but the man whistled and spoke to it with a sound of whiplashes, and the dog swung in at the man's heel and followed after. As if to say here, I don't know if I read this last time, but anyway, I'm doing it quickly. The idea that the dog was absolutely, disappointed, and that maybe I think, as we shall see later, devastated to have realized at the end that this man really had died or killed himself, of course, unintentionally, but yeah, it was his own great, terrible ignorance about weather and about nature and about naturalism and about what is the meaning of challenge. When you want to challenge things, you have to be really completely aware of things. And here this man is not. And really this is the idea. In the next few paragraphs, you can see that. And this man never again listened, as I said, never appreciated or listened to people advising him not to go at this time. Not to go at this time, and he did. And of course, now he started to feel that he had made a horrible mistake which is, of course, not listening to the old timer of Sulphur Creek. You know, this old man who told him, don't go in this weather. It's bad weather, don't go. Or at least, again, here we shall see that he went alone. Again, this is another advice, that you should never travel on your own, especially when you're traveling in dangerous times and dangerous places. You should have company. And I think this is, again, the main idea here. All this, the man knew. The old timer on Sulphur Creek had told him about it the previous fall, and now he was appreciating the advice. Well, it's too late. Now he's appreciating the advice, but now he's on the verge of death. You know, and here, of course, you can see how he feels terribly regretful. Already, all sensation had gone out of his feet. To build the fire, he had been forced to remove his mittens, and the fingers had quickly gone numb. Here again, you can see how he wanted to, you know, build the fire, and he did, as I said, he did. But of course, again, he had no experience of building fires, and he built a fire in a place where he should not, as I told you last time, to build a fire under a tree. And really, this is what here, the next, you can see. The fire was a success. He was safe. He remembered the advice of the old timer on Sulphur Creek and smiled. The old timer had been very serious in laying down the law that no man must travel alone in the Klondike after 50 below. You know, this is the advice. And as we said, he's right. But now he's, this man, thinking that he is mocking the old timer, saying, he told me this, look at me now, I managed. But of course, he was wrong. Notice, the old timer told him, the old man told him not to go, not to travel. No man must travel alone. You know, this is it, alone. And this is the idea, to travel at this time first, and to travel alone, and which he did, which is, again, both were really wrong. Well, here he was, he had had the accident, he was alone, and he had saved himself. Those old timers were rather womanish. Some of them, he thought. What a terrible thing to say. Well, womanish? Womanish? Oh, no. No. Old timers are never womanish. Yeah. You know, we always go, normally we always say this. You have always to go and ask your old people, because they know. They know. Your old people, your fathers and grandfathers know. Ask them, because they know. Here really the message. This man, he said, you know, old timers, old men are, you know, are crazy. Well, he's the one who is crazy. Notice what he said. He thought that old timers were rather womanish. Some of them, he thought. All a man had to do was to keep his head, and he was all right. Any man who was a man could travel alone. No, my friend, you're wrong. Absolutely wrong. But this is his tragedy. That's what his stubbornness, that is his stubbornness, to say all a man must do, all a man had to do was to keep his head, and he was all right. Well, to keep your head, yeah. Are you able to keep your head now? Because your head now is numb, and you can't even think, because you are frozen. Any man who was a man, mashallah, any man who was a man could travel alone. Yes, yeah. You know, and that's why, you know, Any man who is a man will kill himself like what he did. Yeah, okay, you think you're a man? Fine, fine. Go on your own, and you got killed. Very good, very good, good boy. You know, this is it. That's his arrogance. That's his terrible thinking about being a man. I am a man, I can do it. Well, no, 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 my friend, no, 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 no. And really, this is the story, of course, staying here. And you can see this, all of which, you know, we see here, as I said, he built the fire, as I said, under the tree, right? And notice here, now the tree under which he had done this carried a weight of snow on its boughs. You know, this is the idea. Building a fire under a tree is wrong, because he said here, you can see, building a fire, now the tree under which he had done this carried a weight of snow on its boughs. And then, you know, a huge lump of snow fell down completely. Wow. Yeah, okay, notice here, high up in the tree, one bough capsized its load of snow. This fell on the boughs beneath, capsizing them. This process continued, spreading out and involving the whole tree. It grew like an avalanche. Yeah, yeah. Absolutely, like an avalanche. Yes, serves you right. As we say in English, serves you right. You deserve it because you don't think, because you are so arrogant. So here you can see that the tree, the whole tree, as if you can see it, the snow fell like an avalanche. Really, this is a lovely word. It grew like an avalanche, and it descended without warning upon the man and the fire. And the fire was blotted out. Where it had burned was a mantle of fresh and disordered snow. The whole thing was absolutely, you know, covered and killed by snow completely. Well, he's a man. Yeah. The man was shocked. It was as though he had just heard his own sentence of death. Yes, that's the sentence of death. Absolutely. This is, you know, the feeling you say, you know, saying, yeah, I had a fire and now the fire is dead. So it means, the whole thing really means sentencing him to death. For a moment, he sat and stared at the spot where the fire had been. Then he grew very calm. Perhaps the old timer on Sulphur Creek was right. Now he's coming back to say, oh, yeah. The old timer was right. The old timer was right. The old timer was right. Yeah. If he had only had a trail mate, he would have been in no danger now. A trail mate, a trail friend, a trail mate could have built the fire. You see? Somebody maybe last time, I don't know, you or some other people told me that, yeah, a dog can be a good friend. Yeah, a dog can etc. Yeah, but a dog can't build a fire. A dog can't strike a match and build a fire. Cannot, because it's a dog, you know? So really here, it's the idea. The man here is saying, yeah, I was wrong to have come on my own. I really needed a friend now. I really needed someone. I really needed somebody to help. And that's his mistake, of course. And we know one of the terrible things, but he could not. He tried to build a fire. He tried and tried and tried, but he could not. Yeah, so really he wanted to, of course, here, of course, there are a lot of details. Really, I want you to read all of it, ladies and gentlemen. Really, it's a lovely, amazing narrative to see how he was really terrified and started to warm himself, and how he wanted to build a fire again, but he could not, and the whole thing, he felt that his fingers were really dead now. The dead fingers could neither touch nor clutch. He was very careful. He drove the thought of his freezing feet and nose and cheeks out of his mind, devoting his whole soul to the matches, because he wanted to have another fire, but he could not. He watched, using the sense of vision in the place of that of touch. And when he saw his fingers on each side, the bunch, he dozed them. I'm saying, really, it's a lovely narrative. Read all of this. He tried and tried, but he could not build another fire, and he felt really, really miserable. Notice here, we can see the next paragraph. He was trying to say, that, he wanted to warm himself. The ice crackled and snapped when, by violent effort, he opened his mouth. He drew the lower jaw in, curled the upper lip out of the way, and, scraped the bunch of his upper teeth in order to separate a match. What's a shame? He wanted to even to use his mouth to strike the match. I mean, yeah, this is really the tragedy, the amazing way of trying to start a fire. Because, here it shows that you try and try and try, 20 times he scratched before he succeeded in lighting it. Yeah, so he literally, he wanted to, here you can see a little bit, maybe I will highlight this for you again. He scratched, 20 times he scratched before he succeeded in lighting it. As it flamed, he held it with his teeth to the birch bark, but the burning brimstone went up his nostrils into his lungs, causing him to cough spasmodically. The match fell into the snow and went out. Yeah, you start a fire with your mouth, so the smoke went into his nose, into his nostrils, as you can see, and it nearly killed him. He dropped it because he felt terrible. And the little match, out. And again, he said, the old Now we're coming back to the old timer. The old timer of Sulphur Creek was right, he thought, in the moment of controlled despair that ensued after 50 below. A man should travel with a partner. Again, this is a nice emphasis here. You can see the idea that he's always coming back to the idea. Yeah. I was terribly wrong to have come on my own. I should have had, I should have had somebody with me. A man should travel with a partner. Well, and, again, you can see at last, when he could ensure no more, he jerked his hands apart. The blazing matches fell sizzling into the snow, but the birch bark was alight. He began laying dry grasses and the tiniest twigs on the flame. He could not pick and choose, for he had to lift the fuel between the feels of his hands, and so on. But the fire died quickly. He could not build a fire. That's the end of the thing. The sight of the dog, and this is, of course, remember I told you this, when he gave up, he couldn't build the fire, he decided to kill the dog. What a stupid idea. What a terrible man. What an ugly man to say this. The sight of the dog put a wild idea into his head. He remembered the tale of a man caught in a blizzard who killed a steer and crawled inside the carcass. Steer like maybe horse or something. And so was saved. He would kill the dog and bury his hands in the warm body until the numbness went out of them. Then he could build another fire. He spoke to the dog, calling it to him. But in his voice, there was a strange note of fear that frightened the animal, who had never known a man to speak in such a way before. Something was the matter, and its suspicious nature sensed danger. You see, the dog can sense. The man cannot sense. Here, the idea. The dog can see. The man cannot see. The dog can think. The man cannot. And really, this is the funny thing. Really, the absolute irony and sarcasm and mockery. How the man really is laughing, if you like, here. Or I should say, really, the writer, the novelist, is mocking our friend to have done all this on his own. Notice, it knew not what danger. The dog, again here is emphasizing, it knew not what danger, but somewhere, somehow, in its brain arose an apprehension of the man. The dog felt there's something funny about the man, and he was worried that this man is going to do something against him. You see, so this is it. It flattened its ears down at the sound of the man's voice, and its restless, hunching movement and the liftings and shiftings of its 4 feet became more pronounced, but it would not come to the man. He got on his hands and knees and crawled towards the dog. This unusual posture again excited suspicion, and the animal sidled menacingly away. Oh, yeah. The dog knew and ran away. Yes, ran away because it knew. It's a shame, really. He wanted to kill it, but he was wrong. He could not, and the dog ran away. And then he gave up the idea, and then the dog came back to him because it was really a sad thing. But here at the end, of course, we see, notice, and all the time the dog ran with him at his heels. When he fell down a second time, it curled its tail over its 4 feet and sat in front of him, facing him, curiously eager and intent. The warmth and security of the animal angered him, and he cursed it till it flattened down its ears appealingly. This time the shivering came more quickly upon the man. He was losing in his battle. He was losing in his battle with the frost. It was creeping into his body from all sides. The thought of it drove him on, but he ran no more than 100 feet when he staggered and pitched headlong. It was his last panic. Yeah, I mean, really, this is what happened, of course. When you do all this, of course, at the end of the day, he couldn't do it. He couldn't build a fire. He couldn't kill the dog, and the dog forgave him and came back to him. And now he fell twice. He stumbled once, and then the second time he staggered and stumbled, and he fell, and he couldn't get up because he was dying. And this is when we say here it was his last. When he had recovered his breath and control, he sat up and entertained in his mind the conception of meeting death with dignity. Yeah. The conception to meet his death with dignity. MashaAllah. To meet your death with dignity? Yeah. Now you are thinking about dignity. However, the conception did not come to him in such terms. The idea of it was that he had been making a fool of himself, running around like a chicken with its head cut off. Yeah, I think this is a lovely idea. He was like a chicken running away or running around with his head bound to freeze anyway, and he might as well take it decently. With his newfound peace of mind came the first glimmering of drowsiness. A good idea, he thought, to sleep off to death. It was like salting an anesthetic. Freezing was not so bad as people thought. There were lots worse than ways. Sorry, there were lots worse ways to die. Really? It's a terrible thing to say. Yeah, you know, he's saying, now I can't do anything. Let me face death. Let me be a man and absolutely face death as I should. You know, of course, it's a shame, really, and it's really a shame. It's really a shame that this man now, he had no chances whatsoever. And he's thinking and saying, yeah, I must be okay. Let me sit down. Let me sit up and, you know, just feel that I'm going to die anyway. So let me die courageously. Well, it's a shame, really. It's really tragic. It's really sad that something like that, but that's it. And of course, the next moment we see that he, as you can see, the whole story is done, and he died. He pictured the boys finding his body next day. Suddenly he found himself with them, coming along the trail and looking for himself. And still with them, he came around a turn in the trail and found himself lying in the snow. He didn't belong with himself anymore, for even then he was out of himself, standing with the boys and looking at himself in the snow. You see this really amazing idea that he's imagining himself, you know, tomorrow coming with the people, with his friends, looking for himself, which is really crazy here to say. Imagining himself searching tomorrow, searching about his dead body. You know, this is funny. How he's imagining how the boys are going to find him dead. And he imagined himself to be with them, looking for whom? For himself. You know, what's going on here, man? Are you crazy? Yeah, he is crazy. He did not belong with himself anymore, for even then he was out of himself, standing with the boys and looking at himself in the snow. It certainly was cold, was his thought. You see? So this man is going, of course, he's dying and he's going crazy. Yeah, he's saying, yeah, really it's cold. Why this man came here? When he got back to the States, he could tell the folks what real cold was. Yeah. So he imagines himself, you know, going back again home to the States, meaning home, to the country, to his place. To tell them, yeah, cold is terrible. He drifted on from this to a vision of the old timer on Sulphur Creek. And now he's remembering the old timer, the old man, the old log. You know, we say in Arabic in Syria, we really have a saying. I don't know, do you say something about if you don't have an old man at home, you should have an old log? Do you say that? Huh?
I think no.
Haneen? Huh?
I didn't hear it before.
No, we say in Syria إن ما عندك ختيار في بيتك إن ما عندك ختيار في بيتك حط قرمة. حط قرمة. القرمة هي a dead trunk of a tree. A dead log of a tree. Do you say that in Oman?
I don't know. I didn't hear it before. I think no.
Really, to mean that all people at home are really a blessing. Your grandfather, your grandfather who are still alive, old fathers, old grandfather, for example. We say this in Syria. إذا ما عندك ختيار في دارك حط قرمة. القرمة in Arabic, I don't know, in Syrian Arabic, القرمة, which is a dead trunk of a tree. Yeah, it's funny, really. We say this in Syria. إن ما عندك عجوز حط قرمة. حط قرمة. والله it's amazing, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So this man here is really saying this. Now he's thinking about the old timer. Yeah, he drifted on from this to a vision of the old timer on Sulphur Creek. He could see him quite clearly, warm and comfortable and smoking a pipe. Now he's remembering that, he's imagining that this old man is still there and smoking his pipe and laughing at him, saying, "You stupid, arrogant man, I told you not to go. I told you not to go. You were right, old hoss. You were right." Yeah, look at this. Well, he said, "You are right, you're old hoss. You're hoss. What's this?" This is funny English, right? You know, he wanted to say boss. You're right. You were right. You were right, old man. The man mumbled to the old timer of Sulphur Creek. Yeah, you are right. Absolutely. And that's the message. Then the man drowsed off into what seemed to him the most comfortable and satisfying sleep he had ever known. The dog sat facing him and waiting. The brief day drew to a close in a long, slow twilight. There were no signs of a fire to be made. And besides, never in the dog's experience had it known a man to sit like that in the snow and make no fire. As the twilight drew on, its eager yearning for the fire mastered it, and with a great lifting and shifting of 4 feet, it whined softly, then flattened its ears down in anticipation of being chidden by the man. But the man remained silent. Later, the dog whined loudly, and still later it crept close to the man and caught the scent of death. This made the animal bristle and back away. A little longer it delayed. A little longer it delayed, howling under the stars that leaped and danced and shone brightly in the cold sky. Then it turned and trotted up the trail in the direction of the camp it knew. Where were the other food providers and fire providers? Look at this. It turned and trotted up the trail in the direction of the camp it knew. Yeah, it knew. The dog is knowledgeable. More, the man here is knowledgeable. It knows everything. Well, that's it, boys and girls, and this is really an amazing short story. As you can see, it has a lot of meanings and implications. As I said, next time I will give you this Booker Washington autobiography. Please read it for next time. Of course, next time it will be the Ramadan time, and كل عام وانتم بخير جميعا ورمضان مبارك عليكم. The idea, the lectures will be 1 hour 5 minutes, will be reduced to 1 hour 5 minutes, so no problem, I think. But again, I must tell you, of course, that the exam will be like today, next week like today, exactly at the same time, 8 o'clock. And as I said, I will give you 1 hour 40 minutes. And if you have time, if you have no lectures after that, then you can stay for 2 hours. It's up to you. But really, the exam can be finished in 1 hour 20 minutes. It can be finished. Okay, that's it, boys, ladies, and gentlemen. If you have any question, you are welcome. Otherwise, I'm going to stop recording now.